Well, it's 11:57 on Monday night. Shakespeare project's due tomorrow. Probably should have started that earlier. Dang it, I gotta think of an intro. I got it. Do you like swords? What about people sneaking around and stabbing other people with knives? Then Julius Caesar is right. For you! William Shakespeare was born on April 23rd, 1564, in Stratford-upon-Avon. No, not the Avon down the road on I-94. Yep, that's the one, in England. His birthday is more of a spotty guess than accepted fact, as the only records from that time were of his baptism, which happened on the 26th of April. The Bard, as he became to be known, was born to John Shakespeare and Mary Aldrin. John Shakespeare's main job was to make these, but a little-known fact is that in 1556 he held the official title of ale tester. That's right, for a short period of time, the guy got paid to drink beer. William Shakespeare had two older sisters and three younger brothers. Little records exist as to young Shakespeare's education, but historians believe that he attended the King's New School in Stratford. Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway in 1582 in what some English teachers would refer to as a shotgun wedding, as Anne was 3 months pregnant. Oh yeah, and Anne was 26 years old while Shakespeare was only 18. Their first daughter, Susanna, was born in 1583, followed by twins Hamnet and Judith 2 years later. Hamnet unfortunately died of unknown causes at age 11. After that, Shakespeare would disappear for 7 years. No one knows exactly where or why he left, but some scholars believe that he left on account of poaching game from the local landlord. Shakespeare showed up in 1592 in London, where records indicate that he started an acting career. He joined Lord Chamberlain's men, later to be renamed the King's Men, and in 1599, the Globe Theatre which the acting troupe performed in was moved to a spot of unclaimed land, which would be the site of the rest of Shakespeare's plays. In 1613, during a performance of King Henry VIII, a wadding from a stage cannon put the thatch roof alight and burned down the theatre in less than 2 hours. It was rebuilt quickly, this time with a tiled roof, and continued to be used. It is commonly believed that Shakespeare died on his birthday, April 23rd, 1660. Church records do indicate that he was buried on the 25th of April. Throughout the years, controversy has arisen as to whether the Bard actually wrote all the plays accredited to him.
We got ourselves a writer here! Hey, Dad, I can't see real good. Is that Bill Shakespeare over there?
Skeptics cite Shakespeare's apparent lack of education and sketchy background, although the majority of scholars believe that William Shakespeare was the real man who wrote the plays credited to him. In the scene that will be performed, Brutus and Cassius argue over the validity of their cause, because Brutus has condemned a friend of Cassius for taking bribes. Here is a summary of the characters. Although the play is named after Caesar, Brutus is really the main character. Brutus is one of the head honchos in Roman politics, and he is motivated by a sense of justice, liberty, and the preservation of the Roman Republic. His only desire is to do what is right. Although he ends up partaking in the killing of Caesar, Brutus is one of Caesar's friends and legitimately thinks that killing Caesar is in the best interest of the Roman people. He is regarded by everyone in the play as being extremely high-minded and honorable. Then we have Julius Caesar. Caesar is a very successful Roman general who is extremely popular with the people. He believes himself to be above other men and tends to speak in a way that demeans others. In the play, Caesar suffers from a form of epilepsy and has a seizure during the play. Cassius is a good general and has long known Caesar. Cassius hates the idea that Caesar could be king of Rome and despises Caesar's popularity. Unlike Brutus, Cassius kills Caesar largely for personal gain and power. Cassius is the most influential person on Brutus and the driving force that convinces him to help kill Caesar. Then there's Antony. Antony is a good friend of Caesar's and is the driving force in avenging Caesar's death. Antony initially pretends to be allied with the senators that killed Caesar, but turns popular support against them. Lastly, we have Octavius. Octavius is Caesar's adopted son, and the guy Caesar names as his successor. He is not in Rome when Caesar dies, but joins with Antony to fight to avenge Caesar's death and regain power of Rome. The play opens with Caesar returning from a successful battle with rival Pompey. The common people are happy, and there is a large parade. Caesar is offered the crown of king 3 times and refuses it every time. A fortune teller also tells Caesar to beware the Ides of March, aka March 15th. The Senate later decides to name Caesar king. Brutus and Cassius speak of how they fear Caesar to be king, and Cassius conspires with others to kill Caesar. Using forged letters from Roman citizens, Cassius convinces Brutus that the Roman Republic will dissolve if Caesar is king, and tries to sway him to join the plot to kill Caesar. Brutus is at conflict with himself over killing Caesar and whether it is just, but ultimately decides that the death of Caesar will benefit Rome. Brutus does, however, convince Cassius not to kill Antony with Caesar. Caesar is at home and has bad omens making him feel uneasy about going to the Senate meeting where he is supposed to be named king. A Senate messenger tells Caesar to man up and go to the meeting despite his fears. Caesar, not wanting to seem scared, decides to go to the meeting. Caesar arrives at the meeting and gets stabbed to death by the conspirators. Antony goes to see the corpse of Caesar and tells the senators that conspired against him that he will not act against them. Caesar's body is displayed publicly, and Brutus addresses a crowd of Romans. Brutus convinces them the senators that conspired acted justly, and that Caesar's death was a good thing. Antony then takes the stand and gives a big speech about how great Caesar was, then reads Caesar's will, which leaves much of his wealth to the Roman people. The crowd is touched by this and turns against the conspirators. Cassius and Brutus are forced to leave Rome, and Octavius arrives in the city. Octavius, Antony, and others plan a way to avenge Caesar's death. Meanwhile, Cassius and Brutus are putting together an army to regain power and fight. The scene performed is part of Act 4, Scene 3, when Cassius takes issue with Brutus, condemning one of their men for taking bribes. In this scene, I play Cassius, and Kaioslinski plays Brutus. That you have wronged me doth appear in this. You have condemned and noted Lucius Pella for taking bribes here in Sandrians, wherein my letters praying on his side, because I knew the man, were slight off.
You wronged yourself to write in such a case.
In such time as this, it is not meet that every offense should bear his comment.
Let me tell you, Cassius, that you yourself are much condemned to have an itching palm, to sell your mart and offices for gold, to undeservers.
I, an itching palm? You know that you are Brutus to speak this, or by the gods, this speech were else your last.
The name of Cassius honors this corruption, and chastisement doth therefore hide his head.
Chastisement?
Remember March, the Ides of March remember. Did not great Julius bleed for justice's sake? What villain touched his body that did stab, and not for justice? What shall one of us, that struck the foremost man of this world, but for supporting robbers, shall we now contaminate our fingers with base bribes, and sell the mighty space of large honors? For me so much trash may be grasped by thus? I'd rather be a dog and bay at the moon than be such a Roman.
Brutus, bait me not, I'll not endure it. You forget yourself. To hedge me in, I am a soldier, I, older in practice and abler than yourself, to make conditions.
Go to. You are not, Cassius.
I am.
I say you are not.
Urge me no more. I shall forget myself. Have mind upon your health. Tempt me no further.
Away, slight man.
Is it possible?
Hear me, for I will speak. Must I give way and room to your rash choler? Shall I be frightened when a madman stares?
Oh, ye gods, must I endure all this?
All this? Ay, more. Fret until your proud heart break. Go and show your slaves how choleric you are, and make your bondmen tremble. Must I budge? Must I observe you? Must I stand and crouch under your testy humor? By the gods, you shall digest the venom of your spleen. Though I do split you. From this day forth, I'll use you for my mirth. Yeah, my laughter, when you are waspish.
After this little argument, the two make up and are friends again. Brutus then finds out that his wife is dead. Eventually, the armies of Octavius and Antony meet the armies of Cassius and Brutus in battle. Cassius sits on a hill watching the battle when he gets a report that his good friend Titanus has been captured. So saddened is Cassius by the news that he orders his servant to kill him. Titanus, it turns out, was not captured and comes to see Cassius. When he finds Cassius's body, Titan kills himself in sadness. Kind of reminds me of another play by Shakespeare. The battle isn't going well for Brutus in the meantime. When it becomes clear that his army will lose, Brutus impales himself on a sword rather than be captured. Antony and Octavius find Brutus's body and declare that he was a noble man with good intentions, and that he will be buried with full honors. The scene performed really highlights the differences between Brutus and Cassius. While Cassius is completely alright with taking bribes, Brutus thinks that it is completely immoral to benefit from the death of Caesar. Cassius is selfish, whilst Brutus is virtuous. A major theme of the play seems to be fate versus free will. Brutus takes on the attitude that fate determines the future, while Cassius thinks that people are masters of their own destiny. Cassius's famous line early in the play highlights this: "Men at some time are masters of their fate. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves." In review of the play, Shakespeare expert Harold Bloom, in his book Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human, speaks very highly of the play Julius Caesar. Bloom praises the play for its relatively simple plot and characters. He also puts the play in perspective of the times, as is written. The play was written just a few years before Queen Elizabeth's death. He states, "I think part of Shakespeare's irony in the play is to suggest that no Roman in good faith could ever stand up to the spirit of Caesar, even as no Englishman could stand up against the spirit of Elizabeth." Personally, I loved the play. Its plot was relatively uncomplicated as compared to something like Hamlet. The characters were easy to understand and relate to. The audience especially seemed to empathize with Brutus's uncompromising virtue and unfortunate path that it leads him down.